Hi guys, it's Kate, and it's been a while. I haven't uploaded in like 1 to 2 years. So I came out of the closet 2 years ago, and then I just kind of stopped posting videos because a lot was going on in my life, and I started making more content over on TikTok, and then eventually that led to me starting my own podcast. So that's actually what I'm uploading today, is the full first episode of this podcast. And if you prefer to just like listen on streaming platforms, then we have Spotify, Apple Music, and I'm trying to figure out the rest of them because I don't really know what people use, but if you want to listen to it and it's not on your platform of choice, let me know so I can try to get it there. But yeah, that being said, let's get into the podcast and you can kind of see what I've been going through for the last 2 years. Enjoy! Oh my god, guys, I am so excited right now. I wasn't going to launch my podcast this soon, but it is exactly 2 years to the day that I came to terms with my sexuality, and it just felt right. So the next episodes may not be ready for a little bit, just because originally I was gonna wait for them to be done before starting my launch. But I just feel like I need to get the first episode out there so you guys can hear it. I've had it just sitting on my computer files for like 2 weeks or more, maybe a month. So let's just get right into it and talk about what this podcast is. All right. Hi guys, my name is Kate, and on social media I go by the Kate Audrey, and I am starting this podcast named Same Love. And if that's not self-explanatory enough, I'm going to go into more detail on like how I named this podcast and what it's going to be about, as well as just like a little introduction to like who I am. I already tried recording this and just was not that happy with the results. So I think I'm just going to record it like all the way through and then edit, because I think I was being too perfectionist about it. And I really just want to like be me at the end of the day, you know? So getting right into Same Love. It is named after the Macklemore song Same Love, because I personally have a very sentimental attachment to that song, because growing up, I had no idea I was gay, and I didn't figure it out until I was 23, which we're coming up on 2 years now of me coming to terms with my sexuality, and that's the story I want to share with you today. But I really just want this podcast to be a place where I can interview queer people and talk about the coming out experience, talk about coming to terms with sexuality, how life is different being out as a gay person versus being in the closet and being seen as a straight person. I want to encapsulate, if that's a word, I think that's a word. I feel so weird saying that now, but I want to just encapsulate the queer experience, especially for people that are coming to terms with their sexuality or that are newly out and just trying to like navigate the new gay life. And also just people that are unsure or maybe questioning, maybe just want to know more about what queer people go through. So if you're any of those things, you're welcome here. Anyone's welcome. This is just to like help open people's minds to why the queer experience is so different and like how it actually affects your life all in all. So if you're here listening to this episode, you probably have either seen me on TikTok or Instagram, because I literally don't know how else you would have found this podcast. But regardless, my name is Kate. Kate Audrey is what I go by on social media, but my like name is Kate Giffen. Like Giffen is my last name. I just really like my middle name and prefer to use that on my like social platforms because it's more of like my online persona, if that makes any sense. A little bit about me. I was straight my entire life. Well, I wasn't straight. I shouldn't say that. I thought I was straight for a really long time and then eventually came out as bi. When I was out as bi, I still had not had experiences with women, so I still just thought that like my attraction to men was like equally the same. And then when I finally had experiences with women, I realized that everything I experienced beforehand with men was a lot more forced than I had originally thought, and not in a way where like I wasn't grossed out by anyone that I dated. Like I dated 4 men and like over 6 months of relationships. Some of them were like 2 years long. And everything else about the relationships were great. It was more so just like the physical aspect, and there are so many different types of attraction, which I did not realize at the time. So now that I know that my sexual attraction is very much on the gay side, like I used to think I was like 90% straight and 10% gay, but now it's like the complete opposite. So like I still see guys sometimes and I'm like, wow, he's like hot. But then when I think about it any more than that, I can literally talk myself out of even thinking he's attractive. So that's a thing. There's a lot of little weird things like that I still have a hard time like navigating. Like if an attractive guy like hits on me, I have this feeling of like, oh my God, I feel like I should like go on a date with him because he like came up to me and he's attractive and I can tell that he's attractive. But then it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. So I'm going to get into a bit of like my coming out story because that'll kind of like tie everything together. And then in my future episodes, I'm going to be interviewing other queers. So if you are a queer person, or if you're questioning or know a lot about LGBTQ plus issues, then hit me up. I'm going to create a form so that if somebody wants to like apply to be on the podcast, I want that to be a possibility. So I'm going to work on that and let you guys know when that's available. So let's get into my coming out story. And I'm only going to tell it as I would have known it 2 years ago, like when I first came out, because I've done a lot of like mental work since then and have had a lot of like old memories come up. So like I can't really go exactly in chronological order without going all over the place because there's so much confusion, and I'll have to explain compulsory heterosexuality in case you guys don't know what that is. But I'm going to explain it the way that I saw it the moment that I realized, because there was so much that I still didn't know at that time. And then hopefully throughout the episodes of this podcast, you'll get a better understanding of like my thought processes after the fact and like how much I learned about myself after the fact, because a lot of the work happened afterwards. It was like after this major realization that I was like denying my own sexuality, or I wouldn't even say I was denying it, but I would almost say I was just like ignorant to it. Let's just start with my love life in general growing up. So I'm going to start from like the headspace of myself being in the closet, being in denial, or just like being ignorant to what I was feeling. Growing up, I did have crushes on boys. I remember having my first crush on a boy in grade 4, and I didn't really have like a valid reason. Like, I don't know if anyone has a valid reason to have a crush at that age. Maybe we do. I don't know. But I feel like the only reason I had a crush on him was because he was cute. Like, he was a little cute boy at the time. Like, I was in grade 4. He was shy. So I was just like, oh my God, he's so cute. I have a crush on him. Like, I want him to like me back, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually I did have a couple more crushes, but it was so rare. And I almost like could switch it on and off. That sounds so weird, but like I didn't realize this until after the fact. And this is one of the things where I'll start to like go back and forth on like, oh my God, well, maybe I did feel that way. Maybe I didn't feel that way. And that's kind of just how it works. Like, that's just kind of how coming out feels. Like, you just go through all these like confusing back and forth, like, well, were my feelings valid and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I had crushes on boys, but like anytime that anything would get closer to like actual, like having anything reciprocated with a guy or like having that attention made me feel sick to my stomach. And like, I didn't really think about that. I always just thought that I was nervous because like when you have a crush on someone, you're supposed to get nervous, but you're not supposed to feel sick to your stomach. And like whenever a boy would have a crush on me, or if I could sense that he had a crush on me, it would make me feel sick to my stomach. And of course I found it flattering, but I also just like felt so ill. Like I actually felt like I was gonna throw up. Like I remember when I was in dance, like I was in a dance camp once and we had to do like a duo, which is like, well, actually no, I think it was a trio. And for some reason I got paired with like the two boys and I felt so sick to my stomach that I pretended to be sick. I mean, I did feel sick because of other reasons, but like hand holding experiences with boys, like I had my first kiss in grade 8, and I'm pretty sure I like blacked it out because I was so nervous. And for some reason, that stuff was so much more like shocking to me than it was to everyone else. And like, I know there was a while where like people used the term green, and basically it was like prude. So I kind of got labeled as a prude, and I hated that because like, I don't know if it's because I'm an Aries, but I absolutely hate when people try to define me, especially if it's something that I didn't say about myself. Like, how dare you like claim something about me when I have not stated anything, like, or if you don't know me. So that was kind of like triggering to me at the time, and like I internally and like subconsciously made it my goal to have my first experience with a guy and like be normal, like be the way I'm supposed to be or the way that everyone else seemed to be, which like is not even true because like a lot of people in high school are still not having any experiences or like are still not doing anything. And like I just had this like obsession with the fact that like somebody thought I was a prude, and someone said that at some point, so I had to like prove that I wasn't, which is so stupid. Like, I don't understand, like, the things that you do when you're young and you're like, what the hell was I doing? Like, can I please go back? And I wouldn't go back because I feel like everything happens the way it does. And like, I wouldn't be who I am now if things hadn't gone the way they did. So like, I'm really not, like, I have no regrets, but also like, what the hell were you doing? So I started dating in grade 11, like dating officially and like having my real relationships for the first time. And like my first boyfriend, I was like so shy that I literally wouldn't even talk to him in class. Like we were in a class together and I literally sat in front of him and like wouldn't turn around to talk to him. And I'm like, what was that? Literally, what was that? And like everything was fine. Like we got along really well and I was fine when we were one-on-one. And I had a lot of my first experiences with that boyfriend, but like I was so weird and like uncomfortable about everything. And I just thought that it was because it was new to me. So like I just brushed it off. And anyway, we dated for like 5 or 6 months. And then maybe like a month or two later, I met my next boyfriend. I never really had a good relationship with sex. And I think it's just because I was like forcing myself to do it at a young age. Sorry, any family members listening to this, I'm sure you don't want to hear about that, but it's just kind of part of this whole situation. So I want to be open. So after my 2 high school boyfriends, I obviously graduated high school. I was single the whole year after high school, or most of the year after high school, until I met my next boyfriend, and he was great. We dated for like around 2 years, and you know, things ended in their own way, but I remember like having amazing like emotional connections and like romantic feelings towards these people. Like all of that felt very real to me. And I still feel like they were very real experiences. But it was just that like physical desire to be more intimate was so forced and was so like, I told myself that I liked it a lot more than I did. But it was because I cared about and loved those people so much that like I was able to like feel intimate with them, but like past a certain point, it would just like frustrate me. So after we broke up, I had like a 6-month period of being single, which is like not that long, honestly, after being in a 2-year relationship, because I didn't actually like grieve any of the breakup or like heal from it or anything like that. So I basically was starting to really question my sexuality at that point, and I figured out, like, I had admitted to myself that I had a crush on this girl, and I don't think she knew. Maybe she could tell. Honestly, like, I wouldn't be surprised if she could tell, but I would get so nervous around her, and, like, it literally just kept me up at night because I was like, why is this, like, consuming my thoughts? So that became kind of a whole thing in my head. And like, as I was really like, okay, maybe it's time for me to start like exploring my sexuality because I know that I'm bi, but I haven't had any experiences with a girl. And like, what if that is like the piece that's been missing this whole time? Because I always thought like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to do this for the rest of my life. Like once I get married and like have kids, and like I'm gonna have to keep this up for literally ever. I then ended up meeting the last boyfriend that I've ever had. He was like the world's nicest human. He still is. Like we are still friends to this day, and like I care about him so much. Like he really helped me through the coming out process and experience, and he was always so supportive and understanding, and like beyond anything that I could have imagined for somebody that like I had to like hurt in order to like live my life. But when we were dating, I remember there were a few times where he kind of said, you know, like if you ever feel that you need to be alone because you never got to explore that side of yourself, like I wouldn't be angry, and like it would really suck, but at the end of the day, like you need to do what's best for your life. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like I love you, I'm so happy with you, like I want to be with you, like why would you even suggest that? Like, and it upset me a lot because the thought of losing him was really sad and like awful to me. I think I was really scared that that was going to be the reality. And like, if I did do that, then that meant that I had to lose this amazing thing that I had, because our relationship was like amazing. And if I was capable of maintaining a relationship, like we would have been amazing. Like we lived together. It was so great. Like we got along so well. We laughed at the same things. Like we had such a close connection. Like I still feel like he knows my soul to such a deep extent, but that doesn't mean that we're meant to be in like that romantic sense. So that was a really, really, really difficult thing that I had continued struggling with even after coming out. So I can get back into that another time. But we broke up, I think it was July, the end of July of 2020. So I'm going to be a little bit like over the top honest here, because this isn't something that I've like talked about online, and it's not something I ever really thought I would talk about online, because it's kind of like taboo, I guess, especially like in families and just that kind of stuff. So I went camping with my friends and decided to try magic mushrooms, psilocybin. I had done a lot of research on it before trying it, and like people can have their opinions about it. Like if you're not into that, that's totally fine. But I looked into it, and it's a very natural thing, and there's so much research that's being done still because it can help with mental health and all of that. But I was not considering the fact that I didn't know how much I should be taking, and I took a little bit too much, and then all of my fears came out of the darkness and started yelling at me. And that was sort of the night that I realized that I was not living my life authentically, and I wasn't making decisions or doing things that were helping me to achieve my path. And like I have this feeling inside, like this intuitive feeling that I have a specific path that I'm meant to be on, but I have this internal guidance that when I listen to it, everything falls into place, and I feel like I can manifest anything. And when I don't listen to it, everything falls apart. I have a pit in my stomach. I can feel the detachment from reality. So I really was faced with my intuition in a very dark way. And it felt like my inner shadows were like screaming at me and telling me that I was like ignoring my authentic self. And like, I didn't even know at this point that it meant I was gay, but I just like had this like super horrible night. And I think it was very necessary to like figuring out who I am. My own personal belief is just that happened for a reason. And I think it was about 3 days later that my ex-boyfriend and I had a conversation, and basically we were like, this isn't really working. Like we've been trying for so long to make this like more than a platonic relationship, and like it just continues to feel platonic, and we just kept getting more and more distant, and we were both like pretty unhappy in life in general at that time. We still like were happy with each other if that makes sense. Like we still felt happy together, but having this like romantic relationship that's supposed to be more than just platonic and not actually being able to provide that for each other was becoming very hard for both of us. I don't want to dig too deep into that. It's just like, it was very painful, and painful to feel like I hurt someone. I don't like to like blame myself, but it just like my brain loops back there sometimes. So anyway, I want to talk a bit about comp het maybe. I'll explain comp het first, and then I'll explain like the moment I realized that I was gay. I am going to explain what compulsory heterosexuality is, and I'm sure I won't like encompass the entire thing in this description because I don't want it to take up the entire episode. So I could probably do another episode specifically on comp het. Basically, I'm gonna just read a little excerpt from a website. So I'm on Refinery 29, and it is written by Maggie Zhu. Compulsory heterosexuality refers to how a patriarchal, heteronormative society socially conditions women to view interactions and connections with men as romantic or sexual. Comp het is what forces lesbians to struggle through learning the difference between what you've been taught you want, being with men, and what you do want, being with women. So that is from the Am I a Lesbian Master Doc. So something a lot of people realize around the age of like 21, 22, 23, even like up to 25, honestly, like I'm still learning so much that, how do I explain this? You grow up learning the world a certain way. So for example, you hit a certain age in childhood where you realize that you exist and that you're your own individual person, and you start to like form your own thoughts and opinions, but you're still heavily affected by the people around you and like your surroundings and your reality, because your reality is shaped by your environment, beliefs, opinions, thoughts of other people. And it's really hard to distinguish that until you're out in the world. If you move to a new place, or if you move away from your parents, or if you move away from the town you grew up in, and you realize that like anywhere else you go, people have a completely different life experience because they have been raised under different beliefs, or they had different dynamics in their families, or like there's so many things that shape the way that we view our own reality. So when you're in your early 20s, you're starting to see what your paradigm is, like what is your view on the world based on the way that you were raised, or your upbringing, or the way that school taught you to think. And you have to figure out what parts of yourself you want to unlearn and what parts of yourself you want to grow and learn more about. So unlearning is the key word here, because with comp het, you have to unlearn this idea that your value in life and your physical value, your emotional value, your intellectual value is based on how men perceive you. Whether I was attractive, whether I was smart, whether I was good enough. It was all based off of this patriarchal standard. And so once you can start unlearning that, it makes understanding compulsory heterosexuality a lot easier, because you realize that this idea that being straight is like the default is just a societal norm. It's just like what has come to be, but it's not. Like the amount of people that I've talked to that have questioned their sexuality, like it's people that I never would have expected, and they never would have told me if I hadn't like been open about it first. And like seeing that and feeling that made me realize like maybe I wasn't alone in feeling that. Like maybe I wasn't the only one that was just like questioning why I felt a certain way when like I thought a girl was pretty, or like it's just so interesting to look back on growing up and like the way that I saw the world, and feeling like every girl had gay thoughts, and we all just pushed them away. We're all just pretending that oh my God, that car, like I swear they drive by like 4 times a day and it's the same person every time. What was I even saying? So I thought that like every straight girl thinks about girls, but like it was just intrusive thoughts that we had to push away, because that's what like religion always taught us. And I grew up in a very Christian town. I'm going to talk about that more in the next episode, but I used to go to church because like as a spiritual person, I didn't know any other ways to be spiritual because like no other spirituality was talked about. It was just like whether or not you had a relationship with God and a relationship with Jesus. So even though I didn't agree that being gay was wrong, there was still this part of me that thought that it was wrong in me. So it was this like internalized homophobia because I had no issues with other people being gay. And I actually was quite the ally and very supportive and like wanted to be there for anyone that was gay. But I think I was just like secretly trying to be there for myself without realizing it. For some odd reason, I just thought like, well, I'm not gay. Like, because I thought you had to know. Like, I thought you just came out of the womb and were like, all right, well, I'm gay, or all right, I'm straight. Like, I just thought you had to like know. And I thought that if you didn't question it, then you just must be straight. So that was where my mistake came in, but it's like, it's not actually my fault because it's just the way that like society is. It's just the way that like my community was. And like anytime somebody came out as bi or gay, like it got talked about and I heard people talking about that stuff. And like, and I didn't even realize that it was hurting me personally because I wasn't attaching myself to it. So fast forward, we're coming back to my breakup. And my breakup was really hard. I was living with him at the time and he was totally okay with me still living there. But like, if you've ever been through a breakup where you're still living together, like that is literally insane. Like it is not a good time. I would not suggest it to anyone. If you're going through a breakup, just like, don't live with the person. Just get out, like have your own space. Even if you need to just, I don't know, live on a friend's couch for a while, which was also like very depressing. Like I was staying between like different friends' couches for like a month and like I felt so low. Like I felt so depressed and awful. After a month, like ended up moving back in with my parents. So that's like an hour and a half away about. I was so depressed. Like I was not having a place to call home really sucks, but like being like face to face with someone that you're like actively choosing not to be with anymore is so much harder. So definitely like if you're going through a breakup and you're like living with the person, like you're just gonna like backtrack your healing and like you still will heal, but like it's gonna take so much longer if you keep yourself like in that situation. Obviously there can be a boundary shift, but that takes time and like it has taken my ex and I like months at a time without speaking and then like catching up again in order for us to feel okay and normal about like seeing each other and just being friends because like it's emotional and it's especially emotional because the main reason why it wouldn't have worked was because of my sexuality and it had nothing to do with like how I felt about him as a person or how much I loved him as a person. I decided that like I had to take this time to explore my sexuality because I just could not, I couldn't bring myself to just keep dating men because I was getting to a point where I was literally so annoyed if I was like with a man and he wanted me to touch him. I was like, ew, like why do you always want that? I was just kind of like annoyed and like started being kind of resentful about it, which is not normal. Like you should not feel resentful. I mean, sometimes it's like a trauma response to past situations. So there was a while where I thought that it could be something like that, but it got to a point where I was like going to the doctor like every couple months and being like, listen, like something is actually wrong with me. I think my body's broken. And like she would check and be like, I can't see anything. You're very irritated, but there's nothing wrong with you. And like I would talk to my counselor about it at school in college. And like nobody had an answer for me. And like there was nothing wrong with the thought of me being gay, but I was like, I just don't think it's that. Like I had so much internalized homophobia to like work through at the time. But especially because like when you're in a relationship with a guy, you don't want to admit to yourself that like that's not what you need. Like you don't want it to be that because that means that you have to end something that's potentially like really good. So I didn't want to end things with him, but like when it got to that point where we ended things on mutual terms, I was like, okay, well, this is the time. I have to explore this. I have to figure this out, or it's going to drive me crazy. If I keep just like dating guys and like wondering what's missing, I need to at least figure this out. So I was on dating apps and I set my preferences originally to men and women because I was like, oh yeah, I'm bi, so I'll just do men and women. And eventually, like, it didn't take too long for me to notice that I was swiping left on every man. Like, and I would find the dumbest reasons to swipe left. Or like if I went on a date with a guy, it would be like, oh my God, like that one piece of hair was out of place, like, ew, disgusting, like, not for me. Like, I would literally find the smallest flaw that was so stupid, and I would use that as my excuse to not be further interested in that man, which, like, I'll just say now, I do not do that with girls at all. I'm like, I don't know, I don't get the ick as easily with girls because, like, it takes a lot to give me the ick. Like, you have to do something actually, like, disgusting for me to think you're gross as a girl. But like a man could literally just be like perspirating like a normal human being and I'm like, ew, you're actually a beast, like, stop. Sorry, that sounds so bad, but like honestly, like that's where my head was at because like I just liked to think that I was like the shit and that I didn't catch feelings for guys because like I was just too good for all of them. Meanwhile, I was literally just gay. But I started talking to girls, still didn't really have any like experiences with them. And then there was one night at a party and I like kissed a girl and I liked it. And it was just like a very interesting experience because like I had kissed like friends before on like drunk nights out and like that didn't really mean anything to me. But kissing somebody who was actually like queer was very different because I knew that it had like more meaning behind it. And even just like the physical touch aspect of like holding hands felt so much stronger than anything I had experienced with men because I always like wondered why like people went so crazy over like physical touch, which like, yes, I love a good cuddle and a hug and like I obviously love physical touch, but like there wasn't the like spark feeling. It was just like, oh yeah, that's nice. When someone's like rubbing your back, it feels nice because you're getting a back rub, not because like the person who's giving you the back rub gives you like butterflies and like you're having like a body experience because you're attracted to that person. So that was very different for me. Like it literally took just like holding hands for me to be like, whoa, this is different. And then when we kissed, I just kind of like had this major like freak out, almost had a panic attack. Not actually, well, kinda. Like I was going through it, and after that, like I didn't really need more reassurance. I was kind of just like, oh my God, like I don't think I was ever straight. Like I don't think I was ever bi. Like I think that I might just be gay. And like so I was going through this whole thing for the whole week after that. And that week I had a friend staying over and we took edibles and we were watching burlesque and we were just like obviously watching the movie. And Christina Aguilera, she's not my type, but like she's an attractive woman. Like she is beautiful and she can dance and she can sing. Like my legs started shaking because I was like, oh my God, like I literally cannot physically control my body right now because like I am attracted physically to the person on the screen. And like I started going into this like mental loop and like trying to figure out what all of my past meant if I was gay. Like what do all my past relationships mean if I was gay? Like were they real? Were those feelings real? Was it all a lie? Like am I a fraud? There was just so many questions going through my head. Then I started like reading more about Comp Het, started watching Elena Joy on YouTube. She had a very similar experience to me, except she was engaged to get married. I was not engaged, but we had been talking about like our timeline for when we wanted to like get married and have kids. So like it was a very similar experience. If you haven't heard her story, like I highly recommend watching her on YouTube if you haven't already, or on Ashley Gavin's podcast called We're Having Gay Sex. Really good podcast. It's hilarious. It's not all about sex. It's just like, it's so funny, and it's really good if you don't necessarily have like a queer group of people to talk to about queer things, because like they just normalize it. Like it's just so normal. And that's one of the things I realized like once I started being more open with my gayness. It's like it is so normal and natural. Like it's treated like it's such like this wild, crazy thing to be gay. And I'm like, it's literally the most normal, natural feeling thing I've experienced personally. Like it feels more natural to me. It feels like it just like makes sense. It doesn't feel perverted. I don't feel any negative gut feelings when I'm with a girl. So I'm like, there's just so much like religious trauma that was like behind all of those thoughts. So November 2 years ago was when I finally had this like realization. And after that, it literally felt like I had like released, or like when Forrest Gump's like brace comes off and he's like running, like that's what I felt like. It felt like I unlocked a whole new part of my personality. I felt comfortable being myself around my family for the first time ever, and being myself as in like even just expressing my emotions, telling my family that I love them, and like being silly around them. Like I was so serious, and I would always try to like hide even like happy emotions around them, because I was pushing away like this huge part of myself that I didn't even know. I was literally like the happiest that I had ever been in my entire life for like the next couple of months. And I literally cried tears of happiness so many times. But I also had like so many nights of spiraling, trying to figure out like if I was just a fraud and like lying to myself again. And like, what am I really? Like, who am I really? Like, it was a whole process of like unlearning my past and just trying to like understand my feelings and how I feel right now. Because regardless of my past, the only moment that matters is right now. And if you feel right now that you are only attracted to certain people, that is okay. And if one day you feel attracted to other people, that is also okay. Like, I also just don't think that people are labels. I just don't think labels are really real. And like, I like to use the word lesbian because it is like very stigmatized, and I was afraid of that word for so long that now I kind of just overuse it to make myself feel more comfortable. It made me so uncomfortable before, but at the same time, I don't even know if I resonate with that word fully, because I don't always feel like I'm a lesbian. Like I feel like I could be on the pansexual spectrum. Maybe I'll officially unlabel myself. Is that what I'm doing right now? I am now unlabeled, but if you are a straight man at the bar, please do not hit on me. Thank you very much. So that is going to be it for this episode. I kind of want to wrap it up here, and yeah, I'm looking forward to filming more episodes. And if you have any questions or anything that you'd like me to cover, I am going to make that form. So maybe I'll just make like a form for the podcast in general. So like requests for episode topics, or like people to interview, or even like an application. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. But otherwise, you can find me on social media. On TikTok, I'm at the Kate Audrey. I'm the same thing on Instagram, literally like on every social media platform, including YouTube, but I have not uploaded since I came out. So it's been a long time because I was going through way too much mentally to continue on my YouTube path that I was on at the time. Anyway, if you got this far, thank you so much for listening. I am glad that I have a place to share this. And if you're going through anything similar or need advice of any kind, I want to cover literally any topic. I just want to be the person that I needed when I was going through it. So if you are that person, let me know and I will answer in the best way that I can. I don't know everything, but I'm learning so much, and my spirituality has helped guide me through this entire process. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episode. Thanks for listening. Bye.